Hello everyone, my name is Yuko Tomizuka. I'm a global real estate investment advisor with 30 years of experience, and I evaluate more than 20,000 of real estate cases. Today I'd like to speak something about the history, the linkage between Japan and the country Taiwan. This topic, background of Mr. Lee Denghui, what he learned from Japan. Today I'd like to spend some time to recall Mr. Lee Denghui, especially his linkage to Japan. Actually, it was in 2000 when I first visited Taiwan. I attended a seminar organized by Taiwanese institution with the support of the Lincoln Center in the United States. Public officers who are responsible for policy, property taxation in emerging countries came to the center and learned how to assess the property valuation. Japan had already established our own property taxation system to contribute to enrich the contents as well as the seminar quality. Our institution have been sending a staff there. In 2000, the institution which I belong to sent me to the seminar. I demonstrated Japanese market practice in terms of variation and built up my precious network with those countries. Around that time, a Taiwanese guy who is specialized in property variation told me, Yuko, Japan is a model. It was a very impressive phrase to me, as I had never thought about that Japan could be a model for other countries. Not only from him, but other Taiwanese staffs, I had felt the sense well accepted. Then I came back to Japan. I read an essay, along with Principal Rogue's Cultural Essay of Taiwan, written by Ryotaro Shiba, who conducted an interview with Mr. Lee Denghui. My impression from that essay was Mr. Lee looked like a Japanese. I wish I could see him one day. He had been in very important position in Taiwanese policies and was very fond of Japan. Therefore, Taiwanese people eventually shared Lee's mindset and respect to Japan. I have several Taiwanese friends, and I have always found that Taiwan is one of the countries who love Japan. Thank goodness. I have been feeling very glad that we have a country like Taiwan in Asian domain. I have also read another interview record of Mr. Lee Denghui. I would like to share my views on Mr. Lee's backbone, where he respect towards Japan came from. This may provide hints to non-Japanese who wish to success in their business in Japan. I found the following points to be noted. Number one, intention of the education system. Number two, martial art, Bushido, Japanese Eska code. Number three, honesty, sincerity, efforts, and determination. Number four, flexibility of Japanese represented in judo. Let me start with number one, intention of the educational system. Mr. Lee, as well as other Taiwanese who got education under Japanese dominance, appreciated Japanese education system. Some countries are reluctant to provide education system in colonies. My Brazilian husband sometimes complained that Brazil government intentionally provide little education to people. They are afraid of people's becoming educated. If they got educated, they would definitely consider fighting with the government. People may grow at the threat against the colony government. Therefore, they never think about having people educated. However, Japanese government was different. Japanese were generously provided wide variety of education to the people indigenous to the region. Mr. Lee was impressed with the system, and he was keen on absorbing many kinds of knowledge in various subjects. Mr. Lee never thought about betraying Japan by using education. Rather, he eventually influenced Taiwanese people to be Japanese supporters. I personally feel that taking something from others to take advantage of them eventually end up getting robbed, which means taker ends up being taken. On the other hand, givers are always the ones who are given. Mr. Lee's episode shared this kind of message. The point number two, martial art, which means Bushido. Mr. Lee learned Kendo, Japanese fencing. Actually, many people agree that fencing, wrestling, boxing, all those are kind of sports in Japan There's some art called judo, kendo, aikido, and some other art, kado, which means flower arrangement, sado, tea ceremony. When we use this word do, this means a way. It is a metaphor of philosophy. Judo means a philosophy of flexibility. Kendo means a philosophy of samurai warrior. Aikido means a philosophy of creating a harmony. Mr. Lee had a good exposure to such philosophy, and through Kendo practice, he got to learn Japanese mentality, mindset, and our values. Mr. Lee was very much impressed with Bushido, which is an idea released by Inazo Nitobe, who first introduced this idea to the Western world. In Japan, we didn't have any specific religious value which ethically governed us Japanese. Nitobe thought that our ethical values fundamentally came from Bushido, the philosophy that samurai warriors followed and highly valued. The point number 3, honesty, sincerity, efforts, and determination. Mr. Lee referred to Yoichi Hatta, who designed a large-scale irrigation project and devoted himself to the completion of the project. From his commitment, Mr. Lee learned that Japanese are the people who diligently work hard, commit themselves to the execution of the project, and maintain the endeavor with great compassion, sincerity, honesty, and energy. This is Mr. Lee's impression to us Japanese. As a Japanese, I feel the same, working very hard, chipping out our daily efforts to the goal, create harmony among people with showing our compassion, honesty, sincerity, and those virtues. As Mr. Lee mentioned, it is pity that some Japanese forget about such values and do not conduct our responsibilities properly. I'd really like to be the one who Mr. Lee met during his time in Taiwan and Japan. And the new normal brought by COVID-19, I think this is the only one value that we can maintain and leads us to the peace and conformity. Flexibility of Japanese represented judo. Ju means, as I said, soft and flexible. Therefore, judo means the art, philosophy of flexibility. I often use the example of bamboo. Can you see this picture? When the snow piles up on the bamboo leaves, it never gets broken. The bamboo branch never gets broken. Rather, it's flexibly bent with resilience and sweep the snow down and bounce back the snow with resilience. Through judo, we have to learn this kind of flexibility. If we stick with our own positions or ideology, we never demonstrate any flexibility. We create conflicts, and this would eventually get you or your counterparts hurt or broken. Taking into account our flexibility, Mr. Lee learned a lot of such philosophy in flexibility and demonstrated in his policies. I personally feel sorry that almost no Japanese politicians can demonstrate Japanese philosophy in their policies, as did Mr. Lee.